Let's call the meeting to order.
Gandy,
Here.
Ham,
Here.
Flournoy,
Here.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Hallie.
Yes.
Okay, council, do you have any changes to our meeting agenda tonight? Anyone? I've got a couple. Okay. Under public appearances, we're going to move from the administrative department report, setting the flags at Memorial Day and Veterans Day, up into public appearances. Scott will be taking care of that in a minute in that section. There'll be no historic preservation appointment tonight. And I think we should table the architecture review of the fire station as Aaron has that information and he's not here tonight. So if that's okay with you guys. So let's go to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the July 13th, 2020 council meeting. Approval of July 24th, 2020 payroll in the amount of $132,310.12. Approval of general obligation debt in the amount of $13,125. Approval of first internet interim financing debt in the amount of $847.91. Approval of USDA Step 1 debt in the amount of $12,975. Approval of CoBank interim financing debt in the amount of $20,228.08. Approval of planning and design debt in the amount of $939,686.51. Approval of park use permit for Fairfield First Baptist Church. That's a noise exemption. Acceptance of the Beautification Commission minutes. Acceptance of the Personnel Committee minutes of July 8th of 20. Resolution of classification in the fire department. Approval of liquor license for Amor Mio, Big Schwilly's Chicken Dillies, Kokomo's by Mike and Nikki. And approval of total claims in the amount of $2,233,549.53. We had two claims over $75,000. One is the Iowa Finance Authority in $939,686.51. And PKG Contracting in the amount of $1,084,913.76. And those both have to do with wastewater. So I'd take a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Gandy, second by Toohill. Any questions? Yes.
Real quick, one point of order has to do with the minutes of our last council meeting. Mayor Boyer was not listed as present in the roll call. So open meeting law is pretty strict about this. If a member of the board, if this board is not officially phoning in, then they really should not be corresponding. So that text conversation with Aaron technically is public information anytime you're texting. So if a council member is not able to make a meeting, you can make arrangements to be there via phone, but you have to be there from roll call through the meeting. You can't just text in for different parts of the meeting with input, because you're not officially at the meeting according to open meeting laws. So don't mean to be contentious about it, but it's important to follow those open meeting laws, or else we can get in some trouble with the state.
And it's a good point to say that if you receive a text during the meeting, that it can be part of the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So are you suggesting that there should be a change then? Do you want something changed there?
No, just
Okay.
just letting the council be aware
Okay.
that you're either in the meeting and you're involved in the meeting, or if you're not, then you're not involved.
Okay.
It's no middle ground.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
What time is the church meeting going to be on Sunday morning? It doesn't state on there what time they're going to start and when they're going to end. Do we know?
That's my church.
Scott says 10:15.
We start at 10:15, and I'm usually done 11:15 to 11:30.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions? Please call the roll.
Gandy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Okay, that passed unanimously. Okay, we will move to public forum and appearances. First person is Mr. Rick Shattuck regarding the Multicultural Advisory Committee. And Rick, you have 3 minutes to talk.
Oh, I thought it was 5. Well, I'll do my best. Okay, editor of the fairfieldreader.com, where you can read more my talk. And also a person of color. I got this from Home Depot. And card-carrying member of the NAACP, National Association of
Is that microphone working?
Colored People. I've met the director, and we agreed that everyone has a color, and everybody has right to be proud of their background. Now, February is Black History Month, and July is White History Month, as declared by a Black Reverend, Jesse Peterson, to promote peace and equality between races. So this is about peace and equality between races. To balance the proposed Multicultural Advisory Committee with a Unicultural Advisory Committee. Unity is also our strength, not just diversity. And most people in Fairfield, silent majority, are uniculturalists. And we don't mind some diversity here and there. The events, restaurants, and people are great, but we basically like the way we are. Our culture is high IQ culture. Iowa has an average IQ of 103, only 1 point below Massachusetts, home of Harvard, where Councilman Gandy went. And Iowa is a place to grow not just corn, but smart people, like Dr. James Van Allen, generating brainwave coherence from near the population center of the United States. Now, unicultural countries, to say something on their behalf, Hungary, Poland, and Japan have low crime rates, plus a high birth rate. There's high mutual attraction. Mormons, Amish, and Muslims often have 8 children. They like who they look like. That's why they call it like. Japan came so populated they had to make a law against more children. So sadly, multicultural marriages statistically end more in divorce and have fewer children. Now, now when talking about shared culture, not skin culture, like shared culture and living in accordance with the rule of law and respect for our police. Wisely, Fairfield didn't get into allowing Black Lives Matter or any other message on the street. And the message is kind of divisive. It's kind of bullying to insist, hey, my life matters. Say it or else. Say it like you mean it. Say it on your knees. New York Police Chief Torrance Monahan took a knee with the protesters. That night there were more riots and looting. So appeasement is not the answer. And so also it's best that the council stay out of racially divisive issues. So now everyone agrees Black Lives Matter. Blacks do better in the United States than billionaires, Oprah, and...
Your 3 minutes is up, so can you get to
Already?
your last point, please?
Okay. Well, I would say the most important is one of the requests that Obama's pledge for all mayors to sign, or else you'd be called racist, is review of police force policies. They're targeting the police. The police are not the problem, according to the silent majority. The criminals are the problem. And a Fairfield High School wrestling team can put a headlock on. So why not the police? So we should err on the side of safety for the police. Only criminals want the ban on the headlock. I was a wrestler, and I was in plenty of headlocks, and my head is fine. Mike may disagree. But we should err on the side of safety for the police. And so Lincoln, Nebraska's Mayor Baird said she signed the pledge to Obama. And what happened? There was $10 million of looting and rioting. So signing these pledges is not the answer. Another city council, Asheville, North Carolina, approved reparations and encourages every city council to do that. Well, since the 1600s, Africans caught the Africans and sold them to Arab
have an
slave
objection.
traders.
Would wish
Yes.
He's
please.
off topic. According to
Yeah.
Yes.
his request, you want to talk about the
Yes.
Multicultural Advisory Committee.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's not
So-
talking about that.
Right. So
All
if you
right, so
have
I
a
would-
point, make it. You have 15 seconds, and
Okay.
then
All right,
that's it.
well, I would like to be on that multicultural committee. I'm a person of color. Or we should have a uniculture advisory council for the status quo, and I say the silent majority. And happy White History Month. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Okay, our next public appearance has to do with our project update from Alex Potter, McClure Engineering.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me tonight. It's been a few months since I've been here last, but wanted to give you an update on the wastewater plant project. So earlier in the consent agenda, you guys approved payment for PKG for a little over $1 million. Part of that payment was for a partial release of retainage associated with the project. It feels like the project has been going on for a good amount of time, and it really has been. But we're at the point where the majority of the work is substantially complete. So I think you have a resolution following this to accept the project as substantially complete. But we're here to report that the original scope of work has reached that level. So just as a reminder, that includes the influent and stormwater pump station, the headworks building, oxidation ditch and final clarifier number 3, the oxidation ditch blower building, the UV disinfection system and golf course storage reservoir, the waste activated sludge wet well, the ISAM and aerobic digester number 2, aerobic digester number 1 minus some minor corrosion protection enhancements, the laboratory control building and sludge control room modifications, and finally the lower EQ basin and structures. So there's just been a lot of work that's been completed, and this work was completed kind of over the course of the last probably 8 months. And it's just taken a long time to get to the contractor to the point where we'd be able to say that everything is substantially complete. So we're happy to report that. With that, there is still a little bit of work that is yet to be completed, mainly associated with the items that have been added to the project here over the last year. The final clarifier replacements in oxidation ditch final clarifier number 1 and in final clarifier number 2. And unfortunately, because of the long lead time associated with that equipment, we're kind of dependent on the arrival of that equipment in order to get that work done. However, we believe that the equipment should be here in early September, so we're looking forward to hopefully having that work substantially complete by the end of November of this year. And then along with the work that has been completed, we're working through a very detailed punch list for the scope of work. I think at one point we had like 150 items. It's fluctuated in length over the past couple of months, but we're down to about 1 to 3 items for each of the processes that I listed previously. So a lot of work has been done and continues to be done at the plant, and like I said, is on track to be finished by the end of the year. One thing I thought I'd point out is that we probably will have a few small additions to the project throughout the rest of the summer and the early fall. A couple of things that we're working with staff on right now are demolition of the existing stormwater pump station building, which is no longer being used after the project or after the modifications have been made to the pumping facilities. Adding some cleanouts on the sludge transfer force main to help improve operability for staff, and then some adjustment to unit price items for as-built quantities. So you may see a couple of more change orders come before you here over the next couple of months as we work through those items, but nothing should have any impact on the final completion schedule. So just kind of to touch base on where we are in budget, I think most importantly, when the project first started, we were really concerned about the budget. We've done a pretty good job of managing that through the construction process. So we originally had a $21.5 million construction contract, and right now I think we have added just over $660,000 to that $21.5 million budget. But a lot of that includes those extra items that I mentioned associated with the clarifiers. So happy to report that we're largely on budget for the project. A couple other highlights. So it's possible, depending on how quickly the work progresses this fall, that there may be some warranty work like seeding and site restoration that gets addressed next spring, possibly due to seeding windows if they don't get all of the grass planted around the oxidation ditches here this fall. May have to wait till the spring. But I think all in all, we're on track to having a grand opening next spring. I know I was here probably about a year ago saying that maybe that would be this summer. Unfortunately, it's not, but we're getting closer to that point, and that's pretty exciting. Wanted to thank city staff and the wastewater operators for their continued collaboration and patience throughout this project. It's been a very long process. It's been difficult, but I think the end result is going to be a massive improvement, and it is really exciting for the city. So that's really the wastewater plan. I guess are there any questions or any items you want me to discuss in particular?
I'd like to, thank you for your patience too, because I know you guys ran into a bunch of stuff you didn't expect. And speaking of that, I know Aaron's not here tonight, and I have no idea, and I don't know if I'm opening something I shouldn't, but did everybody sign off, or is everybody happy with, I know the golf course had some issues.
I believe that issue has been resolved. I guess I'd leave it maybe more to Melanie and Aaron to confirm that.
Leave it to Aaron.
Aaron,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
I believe that the kind of disagreement over the force main and rocks in the force main, I believe that's been resolved as far
Okay,
as I understand. I
great.
think that was handled by the contractor and the golf course directly.
Good, okay.
Anything else on the wastewater plant side of things?
When was the original completion date?
Yeah, so the original completion date was for the fall of last year. I think the final completion date was September 12th, September 12th, 2019, I think is the date that sticks out in my head. As a result of kind of taking a long time to get the project started, we really lost almost a full construction season. The work, we bid the job, I think, in February of 2017. Ground didn't actually break until, I think, late July or August of 2017. So we lost a lot of that 2017 construction season. So we ended up adding, I think, 3 months onto the project, and that pushed the completion dates back to this winter, or I guess earlier this year, January 12th, I think was the date of 2020. And then we added separate completion dates for this final clarifier change order stuff,
And I
knowing that
believe-
it was going to be a longer lead time for those items.
And I believe, Alex, in your letter, you mentioned there were several things the city asked of the project.
Yep.
Asked of your firm. That pushed the date further
Yeah,
back.
yeah. We added the final clarifiers it was really a pretty large scope change. I think the total change order value was roughly $600,000 for the items that were included with that, and that included some additional engineering that we had to do, a lot of submittals, and that process takes a while. And that equipment is made to order, so you can't just go to off the shelf and buy 2 new clarifiers. It's like a 6-month process to get those fabricated.
Alex, I know there were some delays on the contractor side.
Yep.
And I know that they raised our expense for interim financing by adding additional
Yep.
cost. Does your pretty much in budget number include those interest costs that we incurred because the contractor took longer?
You want to answer this one? Yeah, Melanie's more of the budget gatekeeper on that side of things than I am.
So when we did the last report we gave to you on the schedule of the wastewater treatment plant was pre-COVID when interest rates were higher, and now actually our interim interest rates are so low that it's not costing us anything for the delay. Typically, liquidated damages are charged when the city incurs a cost, but because the interest rates have dropped so significantly, and McClure has been very good with their time, not spending time out there that they don't need to be, we really have not incurred a large cost. Like I said, our last update, we were expecting to see a lot larger costs on our side for the delays. But really, now that we look at it, it's maybe a couple $10,000. And in the grand scheme of things, processing the paperwork for $10,000 or $20,000 of liquidated damages on a $23 million job is not necessarily worth it. So that's why we're not recommending any liquidated damages at this point. So the interim interest costs are down. Additionally, we have kind of self-financed a little bit more than what was scheduled in the budget, and that saved us a significant amount of money. That's what has allowed us actually to add the flow study that I think Alex is going to talk about here in a little bit. Those cost savings have helped us add a few things to the project that we originally didn't think that we could get into the budget.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions? Great.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Alex.
Well, I guess if you want me to talk, I was prepared to talk about the flow study. I can do that now, or I can wait to the end when you talk about the other projects. Up to you guys. Do it
Okay,
now?
yeah,
Good
that's
segue,
fine.
I thought. So I think Melanie's been giving you some periodic updates about the secondary flow monitoring study, but we installed flow meters in late March, kept them in the ground for just about 3.5 months. We pulled them out of 12 locations 2 weeks ago, I think today, actually. And so we're in the process of analyzing the data that we got from that flow study, analyzing the flow and the rainfall data and trying to compare that to the study that we did in 2012. So preliminary indications are that we actually had a little bit of a wetter spring period this year than we did in 2012. So we experienced one storm that was kind of in between that 1 to 2 year return period, meaning that the annual chance of it occurring is about 100%. Well, you'd expect it would occur every 1 year, 1 to 2 years based on the size. We also had 2 of the 6-month to 1 year storms, and all 3 of those storms were larger than the events that we had in 2012 when we originally did the hydraulic model. We didn't get any, what I would qualify as big events like that 5-year event, that 10-year event, or larger, but we got a lot of good events for our model, which is encouraging. The big takeaways kind of from the data that we've seen so far, the grease lightning lift station is undersized and is going to require improvements. We knew that kind of going into the study. The whole purpose of the study is to figure out exactly what the scope of those improvements need to be. So that's what we're working through at the moment. Additionally, we're probably going to have to look at improvements for additional capacity within the West Interceptor sewer, which feeds the grease lightning lift station. In various storm events, we saw that sewer completely surcharging. I think there were maybe a couple overflow events during some of the larger rainfall events as well. As I mentioned, really the scope of those improvements is dependent on the results of the hydraulic model. That's what we're in process of working through right now. We plan to review kind of our preliminary results with staff here next month in August. And I'd say that we're on track to complete our recommendations in advance of the next EPA semi-annual report, which I believe is due on October 15th. And that report is going to set the stage for the step 3 and possibly step 4 improvements, being the grease lightning lift station and the west side interceptor. So I guess we were hoping that all of the rehab work that the city has done over the past several years was going to totally eliminate the need to do those improvements. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be the case, but we did see fewer overflows this year with bigger storms than we actually did a few years ago. So there has been a considerable amount of progress made in terms of overflows. So that's positive.
Great. Any questions?
Just when did you say that the EPA semi-annual report's due?
Yeah, it's due October 15th, I believe.
Thank you.
So that's the deadline that we're working up against to make sure that we have an update to provide the EPA, which they're expecting.
Okay. Anything else?
All right. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to give you an update.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Scott? Setting the flags on Memorial Day and Veterans Day.
Thanks, Mayor. I think most of you remember this past Memorial Day with the COVID pandemic going on. There was a rumor that the flags weren't going to be set up in the square. That's one thing that is dear to me. Our square just looks awesome with those flags up the 2 times of the year. So I got together with some people. We social distanced the best that we could. Councilman Halley was there with his son, and we had groups of 10. Hopefully that's not going to be needed going forward, but we had everything up in just under an hour. It was mentioned by someone that possibly the city workers could take over the duties. first thing in the morning when we come to work. The VFW would still get the flags there for us, as they always have. They would pick them up, and we would be there to, put them away, put them on the trailer. So the VFW would still be, help out in that aspect of it. I did talk to all the department heads. I just talked to Chief Thomas tonight. He's the only one I hadn't got a hold of. All the department heads are in favor. And if you guys approve us doing this, we're looking at less than, I'm sure it would be half hour to 45 minutes first thing in the morning when we put these up, and about the same time when we take them down. With the workers' schedules, it may mean that the flags have to be up an extra day, which in my thinking is not a bad thing, because like I said, our square looks really good with it. But I'm just here entertaining the idea and wanting to know your thoughts on that. If the city workers put the flags up on Memorial Day, took them down, and then Veterans Day, the 2 times of the year that the flags go up in Central Park. And I do have Paul Reapy from the VFW here if anyone has any questions.
And the public could help you as well.
Absolutely, you bet.
We talked about this after the last time, and I think it's a great idea. My only concern is public employees working on a paid holiday. Is that?
That's why we would probably, like I said, they'll either be up an extra day, they'll either go up a day early. Stay up an extra day, but
Come down
once
Tuesday.
again, the way our square looks with those.
So you're just asking us for this permission so that you can get them up faster and down faster.
It's just, the VFW's membership obviously is getting
It's
older.
declining, yeah.
They're always asking for volunteers. People's lives are crazier than ever. It's harder to get the volunteers, and this would just give us a surefire way of knowing that they're going to be put up and taken down.
I would move that we agree to Chief Vaughn's request.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Floney, second by Gandy to approve this request. Any other discussion or questions? Rebecca, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Hallie.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Great, that passed unanimously. We'll move to resolution, action items, and ordinances. The first action item, consideration to accept wastewater treatment plant improvements. Bid package number 1, treatment facility improvements, project as substantially complete. Melanie, you going to talk about that, or is Alex going to talk about that?
I think Alex gave you the information that staff and Ed McClure recommend accepting this.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything else.
Not unless you guys have any questions.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve the action item.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ham, second by Rasmussen. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Ham.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Hallie.
Yes.
Thank you, that was passed. Consideration of the City of Fairfield's disaster recovery plan. Now, I know Aaron has worked on this. Do you feel comfortable taking action on this, or do you want to table it? Do you have any questions for Aaron? Do you want to table it till
Well,
till
when did it
next-
get written?
Pardon me?
When and how did it get written? Well, the only objection I had was I saw my cell phone number, and then I keep my cell phone number private, but no one asked my permission if they could put my phone number in that document.
Perhaps we want to table this motion for further discussion when the city administrator is
Okay.
present. I would make that motion to table until the next city council meeting to discuss the disaster plan.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other questions? Discussion? Okay, it's been moved by Gandy, second by Flournoy to table this till the next meeting.
And my numbers are wrong anyway, both of them. I don't know who they're going to get. They call
And there are a lot
it
of blanks in there, too. So, I think we should have more time to look at it and
Okay,
make sure.
great. Please call the roll.
Gandy.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Hallie.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
So if you would prepare some of your questions and remarks and maybe get them to Aaron before the next meeting so he can be prepared, I think that would be good. I do know that A lot of it was written this spring. Because I know at one point I reviewed it and gave some suggestions.
Does it come
So-
off a template that's prepared by the state, or?
Oh, I think he got a template from another city, actually.
The name is at the very bottom of the,
Oh,
where it came from.
Independence, Iowa, I do believe.
Yeah,
Because Independence, Iowa was in the
Yeah.
plan.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you see any typos like that, let them know. Okay, great. So we will table that till next time. We have the first reading of the amendment to Chapter 10.56, regulating one-way streets. This is around Washington School. Melanie?
Yeah. So the new principal at Washington Elementary submitted this request to Aaron and I. With Councilperson Anderson away this week, we kind of are doing this maybe a little bit backwards. We wanted to bring it to the council so that we had the opportunity for public input. This resolution or the ordinance would need to be passed at the next council meeting in order to get it enacted by school. And we just didn't have time to have a public safety meeting to discuss this first. What they have requested is to remove the one-way on South E and Jackson, and then reverse the one-way for a portion. Right now, the traffic goes south along the school and then turns right and goes west along Jackson out to D Street. They're wanting to reverse this. Aaron, myself, and Daryl Bisgard have all discussed this. We don't really have strong feelings one way or another. I know myself, I've wavered back and forth on this a couple different times, but we know that the school and the staff really need to be behind whatever happens in order for it to fully work. And so since this request is coming from the school, we thought, well, let's try it. This option does not require us to order any additional signs. We can literally just flip-flop them from one end of the school to the other in order to make it work. So we could enact it by school time if the council wants to proceed that way.
Let me understand what's one way, because I see Jackson and E have two-way in this diagram.
So the one way would only be from that south drive of the parking lot to Madison. That would allow us to put a do not enter between during drop off and pick up, whatever our sign says. It'd allow us to post that do not enter sign there. At Madison and E.
I see. Okay, so move it from where it is now over here.
Yes. Yeah.
My only question is, with Washington starting roughly the same time as the high school starts, there's a lot of traffic on D Street
Yep.
going north. Is it going to back up with people trying to turn left across traffic onto Jackson? Is that going to be?
So that's my number one concern. D is narrower than Madison.
Yes.
And that's why I.
And faster.
Yeah.
Whether it's posted or not, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah. That is my number one concern. But I go back to neither D nor Madison is a really good street during drop off and pickup. I mean, there's not an ideal solution here. So that's where we look at it of, well, we can try it, and if the bottleneck at D gets to the point where it doesn't work, we can go back to the way we had it. I did measure or estimated that from D Street along Jackson and up to E, before you turn into the school's parking lot, there's room for about 45 cars to back up in that distance. There's room for about 60 cars along Madison until you get to Maple. So it's not a huge difference. There are times where there are 45 cars or more waiting in line. With the school year, we don't know if there's going to be more parents picking their kids up or less parents, and
That's true.
it's really an unknown at this point. But like we said, Madison and D both have their concerns.
I'm not as worried about as many cars backing up as I am people misjudging the speed that the drivers on D Street are heading north that they're trying to turn in front of.
Melanie, do you know if this is a traffic flow that's preferred by the school's insurance carrier?
They reviewed it. We had given them a couple different options, and out of the stuff that we presented them with, this is the insurance company's preferred option. They had actually more concerns about the speed on Madison than the speed on D. Again, Madison's wider, which keeps you from having bottlenecks, but it also gives the drivers a perceived ability to go faster. So like I said, about every different opinion and thought process has been expressed, and we don't really have a solid answer. I guess what I would like to see or suggest is to pass the first reading, but then send this to Public Safety Committee. The new principal could be present for that upcoming meeting and discuss some of these things further. Like I said, trying to get this done before school, we just, we wanted to get it out to you before we've had a deeper discussion with the committee.
So the residents around the school there, are they just being notified through public media? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not like letters to the home or anything like
No.
that? Okay.
I think the only thing I worry about D is there's more traffic that turns up coming and going on D from like even when it comes across on Fillmore from Keosauqua and, you know, down south. D carries an incredible amount of that kind of traffic,
Yeah.
not even school traffic.
Through traffic.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like we have more trucks and more equipment and more things like that, that really, not even people picking up or dropping off, you know, children, but just, D Street is almost unbelievable anymore, how much, it's almost turned into a, you know, throughway, I mean, of everything, because everybody stops and comes across Fillmore and then up D, or down D, you know.
Yeah, and I believe this is the third school year of the Great Alike, and I know that's changed the traffic patterns around the schools.
Right.
And I think it's just, we're still trying to find the best way
Right, yeah.
For it.
And it's like you say, maybe the thing to do is to try it and see, and if it really sort of backs up and causes problems, have to go the other way.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a motion to accept this through the first reading? And by the way, Melanie, did you want the Public Safety Committee to meet about this?
That's up to this body. If you want to vet it out a little bit more, I would suggest maybe doing or moving it to public safety. But it's up to this body.
Okay. We can probably get at least through the first
I
reading.
was going to say, I'd make a motion under the condition of public safety has a chance to review this before it comes back for a second reading.
Okay. Okay, so the motion is to pass it to the second reading, but also with Safety Committee reviewing it between now and the next meeting. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Toohill, second by Ham. Any other additional questions or discussion? Please call the roll.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Rasmussen, Yes.
Yes.
Hallie, Flournoy.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next is ordinance 1190. This is the second reading to the City Code, Chapter 20, accessory structures. It has to do with solar installations. Anything you want to point out here, Melanie?
We did make the amendment that was discussed at the last meeting about the structures being in the rear 2/3 of the yard rather than the rear half. Other than that, there's no other changes.
Okay, great. And there's no public comment did anybody receive any public comments regarding this? Okay.
Move to approve.
Moved by Rasmussen,
Second.
second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Hallie?
Abstain.
Ham?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Okay, that passed with one abstention. Ordinance 1191, amendment to the City Code 19.08 subdivision requirements. This is the second reading.
So this purpose of this ordinance is just to update our process and changing some of our terms. It does not increase the inconvenience or the paperwork for any of the citizens, and it doesn't change the fee structure. Just clarifies a few issues.
Okay, was there any public comment? Anybody have any? Okay. Is there a motion to move this to the third and final reading?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Toohill, second by Flournoy. Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Toohill?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Okay, under the mayor reports, I do have some board appointments. Architectural Review, Holly Butler. Library Board, Sharon Flinchpaw. And Natty Land Committee, Kevin Anderson. And so you have Sharon and Kevin at your seat there. Holly was online. I think these are all really good candidates to be on these boards. Any questions?
I'd move we approve the appointments by the mayor to the various committees as delineated here.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Flournoy, second by Toohill. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Also at your seat is Multicultural Committee suggestion here. The purpose, to strengthen Fairfield as a caring community. This came right out of our 2012 strategic plan. To provide opportunities to strengthen community connectedness by bringing residents together to interact and get to know each other. To welcome and integrate newcomers in the community. Both of those items, all three of those items were in our 2012 strategic plan. We had a goal. It was Goal 5 about Fairfield being a caring community. And then point number 3, to give advice and guidance to the mayor and council on cultural issues and affairs within the city of Fairfield. Just as a side note, our current demographics, and by the way, you got an updated sheet for the comprehensive plan. When I was looking at this, the sheet, I was adding things up and it didn't quite make sense. So I called, or I sent an email back to Confluence, and they did say there was an error in these demographics. So I've given you an updated sheet for your comprehensive plan. So, and it's just, I think it's interesting to note that Fairfield is more diverse than Iowa. And so our population is 74% white, 10% black, 7% Asian, and we do have 4% Hispanic, Latino.
Does this
Interesting.
include the international students at the university?
That's a good question. I guess I'm not really sure about that. It came from census, so what do you think? Do you know?
I wouldn't think so because that's not.
No.
They're
The census, they
established.
count everybody.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not sure that'd be a question for them. But those were new stats. So if, so what I'm asking tonight is that if you're to approve this committee and its purpose, I have been working and talking to several members of our community that want to participate, and I anticipate that I'll have all of those names ready for you to, hopefully to approve next meeting.
Would this group also be the group that may want to look at the police policy? Or would that be a separate?
I would say that would be separate.
Okay.
But we'll see, when we first meet, what all they want to discuss, but I'm thinking more not necessarily in that realm.
Okay. And this committee,
And their understanding is not to be a review of police policy.
okay. And the committee, like all other committees, will be self-governing. They'll pick their own chairperson,
Yes,
certain terms, term
Yes.
limits and all that. Okay.
yeah. And this will be an ad hoc committee, won't be under ordinance.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking, it's timely right now, I think, and what I hope is that, people will be more respectful of each other, of different opinions and different cultures, that will increase our caring for our community. But, it may be that we do it for a year or two. We'll see how long they feel it's useful, and if there's any particular things that they want to be ongoing. So right now, I think it's, we'll see how it goes and see how it contributes to our city, and if we want to continue it. But for right now, I'd say just ad hoc.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a
Second.
Second, okay, it's been moved by Hallie, second by Toohill. Any other questions or discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Hallie,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Thank you. I have been, just to let you know, I've been getting a few more emails about mandating masks in Fairfield. And my response to people has been to give them the information that according to, the governor has clearly stated that mayors cannot mandate masks unless she makes a proclamation. And I also make the point that it would be impossible to enforce, that I didn't want to use police to, arrest people that weren't wearing a mask. That seems to, some people have not understood that that's coming from the governor, and so it doesn't allow us to do that. I do appreciate the fact that people are concerned, and we certainly have made mention of that when you're out in the public to take care, wear your mask and social distance. When you're around people, remember hand washing and hand sanitizer. Those are the most important things that we can do. I did talk to someone also that wearing a mask is very challenging because of allergies. So we also have to be mindful that just because we don't see someone with a mask, it's not because it might not be because they're being not caring for other people. So it may be their own health conditions. So I want to bring that up. Governor Reynolds, a couple days ago, put out the Step Up, Mask Up Iowa campaign. And, she's trying to, again, encourage people. So from the Iowa Department of Public Health website, we have COVID-19. This is a quote from her. COVID-19 is far from over, and I don't want to go backwards. Whether it's wearing a mask, social distancing, practicing good hygiene, or staying home when we're sick, these simple steps continue to be the best defense against the virus. So let's step up, Iowa. Protecting yourself means you're protecting your friends, your family members, your coworkers, and your fellow Iowans. Each and every one of us has it in our power to slow the spread of COVID-19. So I want to share that information. And I think that's all I have. So, John, City Attorney report? He has a couple items.
To add a little something on your mask comments, Your Honor. There are 3 litigations, Texas, Georgia, and Florida right now, that are questioning state police power versus local police power when you have circumstances that are COVID emergency and the extent of the emergency in the hot spots. And so far, there's nothing conclusive because they're all at various stages of appellate level right now. But it'll be interesting to see, because I think our governor's watching that too, to determine if when you have local hotspots, like Muscatine did, 700 cases overnight and so forth, kind of prompted the mayor, and then the governor said, no, don't do that. But it'll be interesting probably in the next 2 or 3 months. There should be some rulings, and we'll be paying attention and reporting if it comes down that there is something that can be done locally at our level. But right now, there's not. So.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I have 3 or 4 things to mention. Some of them have to do with our ongoing experience with our 28E ambulance service agency. Since the last report to you, we had a trial setting conference. We were hopeful that maybe having won the injunction hearing, that maybe Midwest Ambulance would just back off. They didn't go away. There has been a 3-day trial scheduled, which is out in the future quite a ways because of our court backup due to COVID. And it's scheduled for August 24th of 2021. We're hopeful that maybe Midwest, after we make the transition to a new service provider, may decide that there's not much to be gained by staying on our backs. But that's where we are on that. We did get a letter from ICAP during the last couple of weeks also advising us that they find no coverage for us under their policies related to the injunctive part of the suit. If there is an amendment to the suit, which there may very well be, they will review it and they reserve their rights to come back with a different answer. At the same time, the hospitals insurer, Chubb insurance companies, came back with a different kind of reservation of rights letter that said they're going to appoint a defense attorney to help the hospital. And Vanessa Willman's been representing the hospital, but they're going to add a designated defense counsel from Des Moines to their ticket, with a reservation of rights that if they decide at some point in the opinion of that counsel that what is involved in the suit is not applicable to their insurance coverage, that they can step away again. And I mean, this is all insurance contract content that we have to pay attention to as we go along month to month. But they do have another attorney involved, which brings me to a next question for the council, and that is we have Paul Gandy represented on the 28E agency and also sued personally. The council is aware of that, and we're defending Paul, and we will continue to do that as well as the 28E interest of the city. But what both myself and the county's representative, Chauncey Molding, the county attorney, are hopeful of is that our council will, through Paul Gandy, express that the city wishes to keep Vanessa Willman in the hunt also. She has been involved for the last 3 years on things that have to do with the contracts and the interpretation of the contracts that are involved in this litigation. The attorney from Chubb Insurance, with all due respect, she seemed like a nice person, but I don't think she's got a clue about anything yet, and it would be a mistake for them not to have Vanessa involved in this. It shouldn't cost us anything as a council to continue to have her remain, and this is something that Mr. Gandy and Lee Dimmitt would have to, as well as the hospital, I think is strongly in favor of having Vanessa continue alongside this other attorney. But if we pretty much have a united agreement that she should be in this, the 28E agency has approximately 80 grand in their kitty, some of which can be used to help with her costs because Chubb won't be paying her costs. And at this point, I think she may be most beneficial as far as some of the background she has as far as the contract drafting. Other than that, I'm just hopeful that maybe if you want to add something to what I said, Paul, that you will consider directing Paul to indicate that we're in favor of that, keeping Vanessa on the team.
Absolutely. Vanessa's worked really hard. I think she was a primary drafter on several of the documents that are involved in the litigation. She was a primary drafter, one of the primary drafters in drafting the agreement we now have with CARE. So she's been involved from at least from my term on the agency, which is from January of 2018, extensively with negotiations and drafting and advice. So her knowledge that she's built up over these last 2.5 years, I think would be invaluable to make sure that, or to ensure that we have the best possible result from this litigation. So yeah, I would ask that the council understand and give me the authority to vote for her continued involvement in the litigation and with JCASA.
Thank you, Paul. I know, are you planning on doing a report on the service agency
I am.
later? Okay, that's fine. I won't go any farther on that end of my report. I do have a couple other things. One is the wastewater treatment plant is set with USDA Rural Development for a preliminary closing on the September 9th date, followed by a week later the real documents being put in effect. So September 16th is what they're aiming at right now for our public finance to get our reimbursement, which is a pretty substantial chunk of money. There's quite a bit of work that I'm probably going to be, some of it working with Melanie on, but definitely there's another round of title work and so forth before the 16th of September. Their goal is to have our city officers signing some USDA paperwork September 9th, and then we have to have that scanned and cleared with Kansas City and Des Moines before we go ahead with the closing on the 16th. But that's a light at the end of the tunnel for one more phase of our sewer work. And anyway, we'll keep you informed if there's other stuff coming on that. My last point is we had a fairly full report from both our city administrator, and I know Scott Vaughn's been in the background and Melanie's been in the background and so forth, concerning the DOT site over on West Briggs. We've got some things that we need to be paying attention to regardless of timing that's going to take a bite out of things that we might like to see happen immediately but might not happen for 2 or 3 years, such as engineering studies and other things that go along with those that are part of any kind of public finance determinations. That site, as far as our public finance attorneys in Des Moines is concerned, may or may not be part of a larger project as far as the costs of a new fire barn, fire station, things that are envisioned out in the future but aren't studied yet. So while we're doing the studies and the determinations on whether this is in the best interest of the city or the best use for that site and so forth, what we're going to need to do immediately, just to keep it within the realm of what we can do for public finance and recapture and reimbursement, is over the next 3 or 4 council meetings, we're going to bring you first a resolution to set a hearing on doing a recapture or a resolution to reimburse for the purchase of that site. And there's a rule that if you do that within 60 days of the purchase date, which I think we have to look back to July 16th when we bid, we're going to, within our next 3 or 4 meetings, we're going to run out of time. So we need to get the hearing set, then have the hearing and look at the resolution if we're going to do a reimbursement. And then we may be sitting on it waiting for quite a while as far as architectural engineering studies and other things that go into deciding if that's the right site, what the timing would be, and what the cost should be. But we'll bring you back something at your next meeting to start this process. And the whole idea is that that purchase price that we paid could be wrapped into a public finance package, which ultimately may turn into one of a couple types of forms of financing questions that we may have to take to the voters, either a reverse referendum or a outright bond issue vote for that public facility. So as much as I can tell you for right now is that we'll be doing a reimbursement resolution sometime in the next 2 or 3 council meetings, and it's important that we do it now and not miss the opportunity to wrap that into future project cost. Any questions about that? All right, okay, that's all I have.
Hey, John, I had a question regarding keeping Vanessa on. Do you want us to vote on that, official vote?
I don't know that, I think I have the authority as a member of the
Okay.
committee, and you've given me that authority, so
Okay.
I could vote
Okay, I just wanted to be clear about that.
Yeah,
without
That
further approval,
everybody's
yeah.
good with that. Okay,
I just want the council to be aware that's
Yeah.
my opinion and Paul's opinion.
great.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, committee and board reports. Board of Adjustment, Melanie?
All right, so the minutes for that meeting did not get done, but wanted to give the council a heads up that the Board of Adjustment approved a conditional use permit for a 6-foot fence at the northwest corner of D and Fillmore. This property previously had a fence that was not permitted. They tore it down and then found out that they couldn't put back what they had. So in case you get any calls, that permit or that fence that is going in was approved by the Board of Adjustment. Because it was approved as a conditional use, there's nothing for the council to act on. This is just mainly a courtesy to you guys. If when you guys get calls on that fence, you know the background behind it. That's the only thing I have to report from the Board of Adjustment.
Great, thank you. Any questions to Melanie about that? Okay,
This is the house in the northwest corner?
Yep.
Okay.
Tommy,
Bauer?
Bauer's house, yeah.
Personnel Committee, Judy?
Yes. At the last meeting, the Personnel Committee was asked to begin the process of reviewing some of the police procedures, especially those that seem to be more along the lines of aggression and other things as incidents are happening. And at that time, it was spoken about that they are in the midst of their 5-year review of the entire police policy. And what that means is they are going through point by point in that 350-page document with all the new federal laws and state police laws, and making sure everything is fully adjusted according to the new, and then cross-hatching throughout all those policies to make sure that they're all in agreement. Because, as you begin to change one thing, you change processes of financing and also then just who's responsible for what. So in that process, we have chosen to allow them to finish that work, so that way the stuff that we're looking at, because it's very possible some things are still being changed, and we want them to finish the work. And so after that, we are recommending to the council that 2 copies of the finished police policy would be placed in the public library, so that the public would have access to it to be looking at it. The second point is that the mayor is working on bringing a forum with the city council and with the police department. And what we would like is for the public to be submitting questions that they have about some of the policies or even the way we do policing in Fairfield, so that we could have a public forum and have a conversation, and hopefully answering some of these questions then. The reason we're asking for written questions is because sometimes these are based on law, and especially if it's new law, that way we have time to be bringing that documentation so people know that we're grounding it in some specific things, and then they can check both the Iowa law and the federal laws and things, and knowing those policies as well, so that our policies here in town and our practices here are in line with those things of bringing public safety and keeping our community secure. Are there any questions about our recommendations in those 2 points?
And we have not set a date or anything.
Right.
It's kind of based on, well, I haven't talked to Chief yet about it, any details yet at this point, and certainly will be conferring with Chris Estel before we would proceed. So we want to wait till it's a little bit safer time to.
Glad to answer anything further if you have.
Well, you've got 2 motions that are recommendations to the council, so we're going to vote on these 2 items?
Yeah, we need a motion in a second.
Well, yeah, the committee's recommending these 2 items. to the
We're
council.
recommending those
Yeah.
2 items, yes. So, yes, that in answer to your question. I was just wondering if there were any questions first so that we got those out of the way, but yes. Thank you.
So I guess I'll make the motion and that at the conclusion of the 5-year review, that the city administrator place 2 copies of the police manual in the public library. That's my motion.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Moved by Flournoy, second by Toohill, that after the completion of the review of the police department, that 2 copies will be placed in the library. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Okay, that passed unanimously. Okay, now your second point, your second recommendation.
The second recommendation was about being available, the council helping you to do the forum. Also, you notice in the notes, it was about what it would be to $5,000 to $10,000 to have a facilitator come to do this. And we felt that that was out of pocket right now, a lot more than what we needed, that we could do this as a community and having these questions answered. And so the council being available to help answer some of these questions also would be greatly appreciated.
So that would be a special council meeting, obviously, if we had the whole council there.
So is there, I think my understanding of the conversation is, and I don't think we've actually formed a clear idea of what the structure of the forum will be.
Right.
And to who's going to be involved, other than I think the mayor, chief of police, and perhaps council or members of the council, and perhaps other members of the community. But we haven't really, as I recall our conversation, our meeting, we haven't fully defined what that meeting, how it's going to look, other than we don't think right now it's given the environment we're in, our belief was in the meeting that it's not probably a prudent use of city funds to pay a facilitator to handle a public conversation as stated in your minutes. But I think we did agree that it's a general good idea to have some sort of public forum, left the structure of it to be designed over the coming weeks.
Yes.
And I think as I understand it, we primarily want the question to be submitted in writing to allow the people who are part of the forum, who are answering the question, to have a chance to prepare. But there has to be, we think there should be some element of flexibility so that there may be a question that can be answered at the forum that someone has based upon discussions that arise at the forum. So we don't want to completely, I think we don't, or I don't think it's wise to completely foreclose the opportunity for someone to ask a question at the forum, even though they may not have submitted it primarily, just to get that flexibility.
No, I totally agree, Paul. Yes. Yes, I think, if people want to, if they know ahead of time, particularly if it's a specific legal question, they could, provide it beforehand, but certainly there will be time for questions at that event, no question. Rebecca, you want to say something?
May I add, if there's no, action items that need to be made, it could be considered a work session, public forum work session, that you're just talking.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought maybe you guys talked more after I left the meeting the other night, and so you wanted maybe a special council meeting for it, but, I think that can be decided later too, if you want.
I think a town hall meeting along the lines that you had with 5G question would be appropriate.
Yeah, I think that's how
Where
I
the
remember
questions
the
are started
discussion.
ahead of time, because they could be fairly complex and might
Yeah.
need some research. And it cannot be answered off the cuff, for example.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we give people a good answer.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
I
but
think
there'll also be time for people to ask
I agree.
questions at the event.
That needs to be made clear to the public that,
Yeah.
We've got to be mindful too, how many people we want to put together in a
Right.
group.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I think.
Which is not
it's a-
probably the best idea right now.
Right. That's
Yeah.
why it's not like it's going to happen in a couple weeks or anything.
So-
We got to talk to Chris first. We got to find the venue, and we'll be social distance
my.
chairs and all that kind of thing. So
I mean,
lots of details to work
is-
out.
Is there an issue with doing it both ways? If you do something online that's a pre-written question?
I think we talked about some sort of hybrid where you have a virtual town hall and an in-person town hall for those who feel they want to participate virtually or by Zoom or whatever service they use, but also those who want to appear in person. There could be some value in having that happen at the same time. I mean, as long as the expense is reasonable, I think
Right.
there's some value
I'm going to
there.
guess that, based on the number of people that turned out at the 5G conference, town hall, that same facility could be used with 6-foot distancing, there'd be plenty of room.
I think so too.
So,
And I have not talked to the board over there. They haven't, I know they do not plan to open the facility more widely, I think, until September 1. So I don't think my impression is they wouldn't be amenable to having it there before September 1. So,
right, but you have to wait for the 5-year review to be finished.
Yep.
And I think I would recommend that we have the copies in the library for a month at
yeah,
least.
and we need a
So
period
the
of time.
public can have
Exactly.
access to it and
after that
prepare their
happens.
questions also, so it's not like we're in a hurry,
Right.
so.
Okay. So I think we can just move on from anything else.
Yes.
Judy?
Yes. Oh, no.
We don't
No.
need a motion? What's our action?
I
No?
don't think we need one right now. Let's wait until we get to that next step.
What is the next step?
After the 5-year plan is finished.
After the 5-year plan is finished?
After
then
they
we'll-
review
Copies
it.
go into the
Okay, okay. Are we going, I'm sure we'll have another personnel meeting before that time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Could you ask the police chief if he'd be willing to come when they complete that review to come to council and give us a summary of what they discovered? And
Okay.
I think that'd be good for the public and for
Yeah.
us as well.
Give us the highlights of any changes. Chief, was that, Doug is asking if, when the review is done, if you could come to council and give us the highlights of any changes that you've made.
Yes, we could definitely do that.
I would make a motion to council that after the police department has completed its 5-year review, and we've placed two copies of the
Police policy.
police policy at the library, then the council revisit the discussion of holding a public forum about police policy.
Okay?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Gandy, second by Flournoy, that after the updated policies have been in the library, that we revisit the public forum.
Placed in the library, yes.
Okay, so we lost one of our members. Do I wait?
Are those going to be retained in the library at all times, not available for checkout?
That was our recommendation.
Okay.
We're asking that the city administrator would ask for that.
I think that would be the best.
I think it's a good idea.
That they stay permanently there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but they could probably check it out.
Well, we can talk to the
Yeah.
librarian about this when it comes to
Yeah.
that point, I
I
think.
think
Well-
that'll be awkward myself, but it's a loose leaf booklet,
Yeah.
so if they have a policy they want to focus on, it's easy to get a copy for 15 cents.
Yeah, okay. We did talk about having a copy here at City Hall as well. So we probably should add that. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded that after the policies have been placed in the library and the chief will come and talk to the council about any updates and highlights, and then at that time, we'll readdress town hall public forum.
Okay, so you're amending the motion slightly, but you're suggesting that after the chief comes and speaks.
Yeah, I don't mean to be amending the motion.
No, that's fine.
So I'm just saying,
It's a
putting it in order.
Friendly amendment, I accept it, but I think I understand it. The chief will come and speak.
Yeah.
At that same event, meeting, we'll discuss or revisit the idea of a public forum. Is that right?
It's
That's
up to
my
you.
motion. Okay,
That's
my
your
motion is that. At the same, at the,
All right.
I was
during
just
the
trying to
same
get it right
council
order.
meeting after the chief has spoken, we will revisit the idea, or revisit the concept, or, yeah, revisit the idea of holding a public forum, discussing policing policy.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I do have a question. They said they're halfway through a 5-year review, so we're looking 2.5 years from now?
No.
No.
On annual, 5-year, every 5 years they do a review.
Perhaps you
Okay.
could ask the chief, does he have an estimated
Right.
There's no talking
completion date?
halfway to the next 5
Every
years.
5 years is the long process. It takes months. If we have full staff right now with 3 at the academy, Lieutenant Kinsella and I, who usually do most of it, are answering calls some of the times, a lot of the time. So it's postponed it even further. September, when we get the 3 back. Unfortunately, we're trying to do it. Officer Burnett is helping out as much as he can. He's on light duty right now. We keep getting interrupted, though. It's usually a 4 or 5 month process to go through each policy. It probably will take that amount of time. We're hopeful, but it depends on the amount of emergencies we have, sir.
So we're looking at completion date possibly by the end of the year, is that what you're suggesting? This is July now, end of July.
We're probably halfway through the process now, sir. So we're hopeful to have it done before the year. As we put it in a bigger rush than it usually is with the 5-year review. But I can keep you updated on the process. That's what we're struggling with now, is just covering the street in between, trying to sit down and look at the policy, sir.
So so we're understanding that we're talking about if we're going to do something based upon the chief's report, it's going to be maybe in 2021 before we're able to have a forum, if we're waiting for that. If we're waiting for that as a marker of when we should have a forum. Is that correct?
You said it takes 4 or 5 months to do it, and you're halfway through it. Is that
Yes, sir.
right? So you're looking at 2 to 2.5 months possibly to finish it.
October,
sir.
maybe.
So October. Okay.
October, is that a reasonable time frame? We're not trying to hold you to any date, but
I don't know if anything will be open to hold a forum and prior to that anyway.
I'm asking the chief, do you think October is a reasonable time frame for you?
But for the policy, yes, sir.
To complete the review?
Yes, sir. Hopefully before.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Oh, okay. All righty. Okay, the ambulance service. Paul, do you have anything to add to?
Did we call the roll on that one?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Motion and
I'm sorry.
second.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Please call, well, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, that was passed unanimously. Thank you. Getting ahead of myself here. Paul, now do you have anything additional to add about the ambulance?
I can tell by the way you phrased that question that my speech is going to be somewhat shortened. But what I wanted.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, actually, the substance of it is that I'm very proud to have been a member, and still am a member of J CASA. We have worked since I came onto the committee in January of 2018, and from that time until now, we have been working on trying to structure, come up with the best possible ambulance service for the county. And we've tried different things, and I've tried to keep the council up to date. I know there's a lot of things we have to deal with, and the public and the mayor, but we have a contract with Care Ambulance, who's located in Iowa City. That contract is due to begin on October 1st when our current provider, Midwest Ambulance Services contract, ends. And we're confident, based on our conversations with and study of CARE that they're going to be a very good provider. You know that. We've told you that we're pleased with the agreement. We think we're going to have a level of transparency and accountability that, unfortunately, we haven't been able to experience with Midwest, although we wanted to give them that opportunity when we were looking at a new ambulance service provider, and they weren't, at least from my view, they weren't willing to come through with that. So we have our provider, and our next step in the process was to, as you may recall, we were going to, as a committee, agency, purchase 2 of the 3 ambulances. So we met several times. I think sometimes the meetings were, would you say, John Morris, our city attorney, somewhat contentious. We had our points of view, somewhat spirited, but that's because everyone really cared about having the best service. We sent out an RFP, a request for proposal, several weeks ago. We had some quality responses. We even had one of the ambulance sellers bring 2 of their, they call them rigs, bring 2 of their rigs down for us to inspect this last Friday. It's 94 degrees outside, maybe 96 degrees outside. The city attorney was there, city administrator was there, fire chief was there, all the members of the J. Costa committee, including the Jefferson County supervisor, Lee Dimmitt, Julie Greason, the chair of the committee, the CEO of the hospital, were all out there in the blazing sun. We had Bob Kelleher from Bob's Automotive come over and climb underneath, get down on his hands and knees and go underneath one of the ambulances to look it over. People rode in them, they looked them up and down. So we feel very confident that we have a very intimate knowledge of the ambulances we're buying, and at a fair price. We're going to be buying one new one and one used one because we're going to be able to cycle them out on a staggered basis, which is going to work out well for the city and for the county and for the hospital. But we think we got a good price. We think we got quality ambulances. When you see them, I think you'll agree. And I think our citizens, most importantly, our citizens will be pleased with the quality of the equipment, and I think they'll be our fingers are crossed, they'll be pleased with the quality of the service. So we are going to have these ambulances available. I think, John, I believe it's the middle of September, maybe sooner.
Earlier, yeah.
Okay, maybe sooner. Okay, our contract, as I say, for CARE begins on October 1st. So we have the people in the committee have done a good job, and I think the city and the county and the hospital has a lot to be proud of. And I look forward to the service being the kind that we should have fewer concerns from our citizens. Of course, they'll be concerned. They want to make sure the service is good, but I think we're going to see some good work by CARE. And if the equipment is any measure of that, we're in the right road. So that's the report I wanted to give.
Great, thank you. Any questions to Paul?
I'm just curious, is it public, where are they going to be housing out of, or based out of?
CARE is responsible for housing the ambulances, and that has yet to be determined. As of when we were talking with, and the president of CARE was also there when we were looking over the ambulances. The president of CARE was there, as well as a couple of ambulance drivers. So everybody, a dozen people, I think, at least, were there looking at ambulances up and down. There is some discussion as to where they're going to house the ambulances. Ultimately, we think, as you know, based on what the city purchased a few weeks ago, there could be a situation down the road where those ambulances are housed on city property. But right now, CARE is in discussions with, I think, multiple sites. Exactly where, I don't know. I can't tell you right now.
Are they still are they still doing transports out of Jefferson County?
CARE?
Yes.
Yes, I think they still do. I think,
They still do,
in
okay.
fact, when we had the meeting on Friday to look at these ambulances, I think I saw a CARE ambulance
In town.
driving by, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Will these ambulances that we're purchasing be labeled JCASA, or will they have CARE's logo on them?
I think, as I understand it, John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to say Jefferson County Ambulance Service provided by CARE Ambulance Service, the Jefferson County Ambulance Service Agency, or something like that, provided by CARE Ambulance. I believe that's going to be how they're going to be striped.
So then CARE will have one ambulance.
CARE will own one.
Right.
They'll operate
And
all
then-
three.
Right.
Right. And we think that gives us a little bit more. The reason we made that decision as an agency, we think that over time that's going to give us a little bit more control We hope that our relationship with CARE is a positive one. We hope that our relationship with them is mutually beneficial, but in case things don't work out the way we hope they will, we think they will, we want to have the flexibility to make sure we retain ownership of at least 2 of those ambulances. And so if we need to transition to some other type of service, it'll be easier to do so. That was the thinking there.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Let's go on to administrator and department reports. Melanie, she's got a project report.
Yeah. So step 2 continues to progress. They have a fair amount of the pipe in the ground. They still have a lot of testing and manholes and such to be placed yet. So still looking at a completion date next year. I wanted to note that the trail through the Neff wetlands is open, but for those of you that are familiar with that trail, you'll notice that it's not back in the exact same place towards the north end. We know this. We are going to fix that. This is just a temporary path, so sewer work can continue, but the trail is open. So anyone who's concerned about that, that will be fixed. Also, the trail near Chautauqua Park, the loop trail, is closed to the 4 or 5 people who continue to go through construction site. You enter at your own risk, but we appreciate those who are staying off of the construction site.
I have one question for you. Trying to find that term, direct jacking.
Yes.
What's that?
So it's not exactly boring. It's a different type of boring. I'll put it that way. But basically, they're boring the pipe through the forested wetlands there between Glasgow and Burlington, and that way we're not disturbing the wetlands and not having to mitigate the forested wetlands. So, and they put in 10 or they put in 1,000 feet of pipe at once, and the pipe is welded together as they go, and then the contractor has to come in and cut that pipe to put in the manholes in the certain locations, because we have to put manholes every 500 feet apart. So there is some disturbance, but it's small enough that it doesn't cause an issue. On the wastewater treatment plant, one thing I wanted to clarify, because we had Alex telling us that we won't be done until next year, but then John, Mr. Morrissey mentioned that we'll be closing that project out, the USDA portion. That project's being funded multiple ways, including city contribution or city cash contribution, USDA grant, and USDA loan. And we're confident by the end of September, we will have spent all of the money related to the USDA loan portion. So we'll be closing that portion out, but we'll continue to spend, so to speak, our portion and the grant portion. But that's how the timing of all of this is working. On the Highway 1 improvements, at the last project update, we talked about an alternative design that included closing South Junction Road. Right now, we have both design alternatives submitted to the DOT, and they're looking at those. Once we have an answer from the DOT as to if both of them are feasible or acceptable to the DOT, then we'll talk with the council and make a decision on the final layout. If the DOT only says one of them's feasible, that kind of makes our decision. So we'll keep you up to date as the DOT provides us input on the design. 9th and Burlington, the concrete work out there on the sidewalks is complete, but there's a long lead time on the signal portions, so you'll see work kind of finish there for a while until the new pedestrian signals arrive.
What about the high visibility across Burlington? I didn't know what that meant when I saw the layout, even though I helped you write the grant.
Right.
I don't know what I'm talking about, technical stuff. So is that different somehow than the normal striping that the city does?
Yeah, it has a higher reflectivity than the regular paint. It's got more texture to it and stuff, so the light bounces off it better.
Who installs it?
The contractor will. That I don't know if we're going to do I believe we're gonna wait until the signals get up, because if we would put the new crosswalks in now, we wouldn't have the signals associated with it. So we're gonna kind of leave the crosswalk that's there until the new signals arrive. I think the last one I wanted to point out that since my last report, I got two more. Since my last report, city crews have started and completed water main replacement on Carpenter from Highway 1 to Orchard Place. This was about 650 feet of water main. They're working on putting the customers over to the new line, but I wanted to say kudos to the city crews for getting that done. That's like a record amount of time, and the work was good, and the tests have all passed and everything like that. So good work in-house there. And then lastly, city crews have been working on replacing the alley between Burlington and Broadway and Court and B. The city's been trying to do a section of alley each year. They do this in-house as a way to make the dollars go farther. They've completed about half of the work, and so they'll continue on that over the next month. That is all. If there's any questions. Michael, surely you got a question.
I've asked them all.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Actually, I have one question. I'm sorry. And I may have been giving out false information here, but I've had a couple people ask me. I was under the impression that we were limiting public forum appearances to phone calls only until further notice. Are we or are we not? Do we know? Have we decided one way or the other?
I don't think we've ever.
We've
made
had
that
both.
decision.
Yeah, we've had individuals, kind of up to them as long as they
We
stay
have.
6 feet away.
Okay.
I don't think we were requiring people to call in, but they could call in.
Well, I was
if they
kind of under the
preferred
impression
that.
we were until, we were until like July 1st, and then we decided to extend it, but we didn't really say till when.
Can you-
So
Yeah, I
I think we
guess,
decided to extend this, but we
Yeah.
said we'd still let,
we'd let public.
yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we never really decided.
I don't think we decided explicitly.
Do you have a concern, Tom?
No, I have told a few people that if they have an issue with anything, that they need to call in or set it up with Aaron to call in. I was still, I guess I was under a false impression. I thought we were limiting.
I
To-
actually
to a
prefer
smaller
people
group as
could be here to
possible.
talk to us, but I find it better for me.
yeah, I guess I was thinking that they could call in, they could come in, but we weren't opening up but to completely to the public to have, 15 people in the chambers, and we were staying in this formation for a little while.
Okay.
So,
Do you want to make that something
Do-
to talk about the next meeting or something?
I mean, I guess it wouldn't be a bad topic to bring up again. I mean, it doesn't,
Right.
nothing is on the improving side right now, so we probably should revisit it just to see, what we want to do to limit.
and Rebecca and I talked about it a little bit tonight, and she said that Aaron was going to talk to Chris Estel at Public Health, so we don't know if that's taken place, so maybe
Okay.
let's see if we can find out more information, and then we'll bring it up and talk about it next meeting.
Okay.
At some point, we may want to have Chris come back.
Yes, she is actually scheduled to come back at our next meeting.
Oh, at the very next meeting?
Yes,
That'd be a
yeah,
good
our
time to
first
talk
meeting in
about it.
August.
that'd be
She
great
is
then.
on the agenda,
Okay.
so, yep, and give us
All right.
give us an update, and, do you want anybody from the hospital to come for an update?
I think last time we had Chris and the public health nurse, and just so happened, the campus nurse
Yeah,
also
that
was
was
there.
accidental.
Yeah, it was
Happy
not-
accident.
It wasn't planned.
Yeah.
If she could, I did speak with her, and you've spoken with Ms. Estel, and I've also, by message, communicated with her. I think they worked well together, they spoke well together, and the campus nurse would be willing to address again, so if it comes at the same time, it'd be great.
Okay, great.
And I saw on Facebook a county supervisor meeting where they said there were plenty of ICU beds and plenty of PPE available in the county, so,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure Chris could have told us that also, but.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Well, I can ask
Well, and
Brian Hunger if he's got any major update that he wants to share with the community.
Yeah.
I'll
That'd be good.
let him know to come that night.
But it's not
and that's,
necessarily us, but this is a way to get into the public as well.
Right.
Right.
So I think it's important that we have people come and talk about this, talking to the public at large who watch the video or listen live, so that they can become informed. Just another outlet.
I think so too.
Okay. I'll get in touch with them. Okay. So if there's, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Toohill, second by Flournoy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.